Hey guys, welcome to another Kickster review. So today I'm going to be reviewing the third and final of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials titled The Giggle. I'll give you a quick breakdown of the premise and then I'll go over what I liked and what I disliked about this episode and then give you my overall thoughts as to what I thought this kind of scored out of 10. So the premise of this episode essentially revolves around the villain, which is the Toymaker, who basically created a curse with a toy back at the very beginning of the inception of television. And basically there is a thing that he's implanted at the beginning of television that is basically echoed throughout all of time. It is a laugh by this toy that essentially can turn people crazy. And so what culminates in this episode, where everything is falling apart in London and the world, is everyone's gone mad. Is basically everyone believes that they are now right about everything all the time, and so it's just creating massive conflicts between people, and this is all because of what the Toymaker did with his original curse. And so the Doctor and Donna team up with UNIT, the military force, to take on the Toymaker, or essentially take on to try and save the world from what's going on. And this is where they discover this sound, this laugh that is causing people to go insane. And so they set out to basically fix that, which is when the Toymaker shows up and they have an encounter with him. He basically kills the Doctor, or shoots a beam through him, and he starts to regenerate. But then, big spoiler here, is that he bi-generates, meaning the new Doctor, played by a black man played by Ncuti Gatwa, forms out of David Tennant's Doctor. So they're now both there, and so they have essentially bi-generated. And together they take on the Toymaker in a game of catch, essentially, and they take him down, and that's basically it. And so we're essentially in uncharted waters when it comes to Doctor Who now with the resolution of this episode. With this bi-generation, you now have a new Doctor who will be the main Doctor going forward, but you also have the old Doctor played by David Tennant, who now still exists, and he has basically retired and living with Donna and their family, and he's happy and he's content. He doesn't need to go on adventures anymore, and they both exist, and this is really just a completely new situation for Doctor Who. So I have a lot of thoughts about this episode, but I'll start off with what I liked. So first and foremost, I think the premise of this episode was perhaps my favorite premise of these three specials so far. I liked that this starting idea that, okay, there was this thing implanted into the creation of the television that has been subtly just waiting there behind the curtains, essentially throughout all of history, to this point where now it is causing all of humanity to go mad, and everyone's been taking it in. And now that everyone has a screen in front of them at all times, it is now essentially the right time for this like craziness to unfold. And so I like that starting premise. I like that that's the Toymaker as a villain, like what he's done there. I think that's a really cool and interesting story to go with. So I think that was a lot of fun to see. The other thing I have to mention, and I've mentioned this a number of times now, is that the performances, particularly of David Tennant and Catherine Tate in the roles of the Doctor and Donna, you know, they always bring it. They're always great, regardless of how strong the script is. They're fantastic in their roles. They're born to play them. And so it's just a lot of fun to see them once again in this episode. But sadly, that's basically where my compliments stop for this episode. And now I have a few big issues that come up with this episode that make me ultimately dislike it. So starting off, I'll start with the smaller things. So the whole laugh thing, whilst it seems kind of clever and fun on the surface, when you step back from it, it's really just a copy of a previous Doctor Who episode with the Master, where you had the drum beat that was like going throughout all of humanity and causing havoc. Now this time it's just a laugh, but doing the same thing. So it's really just a copy again of something that they've done before, and a retread, but just not done as well. And whilst I like the starting premise of the Toymaker, he is a character that ultimately deals more in the humor and the kind of levity side of Doctor Who. And so the episode does kind of unfold that way. You know, you have a musical number, all this stuff. They can be fun in isolation, but as a culmination of three special episodes, the stakes didn't feel serious enough or grand enough to merit this kind of a villain. This feels like more of a mid-season villain, not something that you would have as your final episode, particularly as it's supposedly meant to be your last one with David Tennant. Just feels like it kind of cheapens the occasion to make it more about the laughs than the actual tension. And this all really culminates in the final climax, which is essentially a game of catch between the two Doctors and the Toymaker, where they're throwing the ball at each other to see, and whoever drops it first loses. And that's like, it just feels really lame, does not feel intense in any way. It's just, yeah, it's a real shame because there was potential here with this episode, and I felt they went too much into the silliness. And speaking of the two doctors, we have to talk about the most important moment of this episode, which is the bi-generation. And this might be the most significant moment in Doctor Who history, and not for a good reason. I think it's a total cop-out to go down this route. Now, I'm no Doctor Who expert. I know only what I've seen so far from basically Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and a bit of Peter Capaldi. That's it, but this has never been a thing, the bi-generation. I don't know why they're doing it now, at least from what I've seen. There's been no mention of it, no real hints at it even, but like, and even the explanation for it, I didn't buy. I don't buy the idea that essentially the old Doctor, David Tennant's Doctor, like needs to retire. He doesn't need to regenerate. He just needs to live a normal life and stop running whilst the new one essentially takes over. And that kind of makes the new one into a sort of first Doctor situation. It's not so much that he's the 15th now. It feels more like he's the first one of a new era, whilst this old one just kind of gets to retire and just live a normal life. I don't like that because, one, I hate just for any reason that they've rewritten the ending of David Tennant's Doctor, which was a damn near perfect ending all the way back in series 4. Like, that ending is absolutely tragic. His ending with Donna is tragic, and that's the tragedy of the Doctor, is that he always has to make these tough and terrible decisions, but ultimately for the good of humanity, and it's heartbreaking to watch. And I feel this just completely undoes it, and it's such a modern trope to do that, where they just really want to give this happy ending despite what it means long term. Like, they just want to say, oh, it's okay, he's back now and he can just live a normal life because that's what we all want to do. But it's like, no one wants to deal with the actual hardships of life. Like, people have to make tough decisions at times, and the Doctor and Donna made those a long time ago, and the world was better for it. And we were better for it as an audience because we got to see amazing television, but now it's all completely undone. And so I'm just left scratching my head as to why they've done this. And I'm sure people with far more Doctor Who knowledge than me will give out every reason under the sun as to why they've done this bi-generation thing, but I'm just going to come out and say exactly why they have done it. So it is a very well-known fact that Doctor Who has been failing in the ratings in recent years, basically since the Jodie Whittaker era. It has just been plummeting with viewership. They're losing the audience, and even with these 3 specials, they have not really recaptured the big audience again. They've only got a little bit of a bump with David Tennant's return, but not much else. And so with that said, they know that David Tennant is the most popular Doctor still living, and they want to tap into him anytime they want. And so they've created a situation where they can inject their identity politics, have their new gay black Doctor who's going to be the main Doctor go on his main adventures. And when he eventually fails, because I believe he will, not for him being black or gay, just because I believe that they don't know how to write correct or proper Doctor Who anymore. But when he does eventually fail, they will then fall back on David Tennant's Doctor, and they have a way to do that now that he just basically is there and exists in this universe. They can access him anytime. So they've just created this situation that, forget lore, forget explanations, theories, all of that. It all just comes down to money and viewership. They know they're tanking, so they want to weigh out anytime that they can. And so if they need a bump in ratings, just call on David Tennant, he'll save the day. That's it. That's the only reason that this is happening. So yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I did not like this episode. I had plenty of issues with it, despite having a premise that I was on board with. So yeah, this is very disappointing. I thought these 3 specials were going to be really something great to behold, kind of a brief return to the glory days, or sort of the Doctor Who era, like of the David Tennant era, but really did not do that. They were just bogged down by identity politics at every turn. The writing was average at best at times. It was never great. The second episode to me does stand out as the best one. I think that felt like the most genuine Doctor Who kind of episode, but all of them felt like filler episodes at best. None of them felt like they were worthy of being a special. and they weren't special. So yeah, it's sad to see, but not particularly surprising in this day and age and where we're at with this franchise and many other franchises. So yeah, I'm disappointed, but I'm gonna give this episode a 4 out of 10. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode in the comment section below. If you liked it or disliked it, I want to hear them all. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. It would really help out, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.